The key to NIO stock could be patience. And this is something I've talked about, but in case you haven't seen this, this is actually the breakdown or the description that's on my YouTube channel. The reason I chose this company and this stock to focus on can probably be summarized right here. I believe NIO is a unicorn. We've never seen a company like it before. Now, I offer a few other things as well, like how my view also encapsulates or takes in that NIO is probably an IDE. More on that in just a minute. But how about NIO as it compares to other companies that also could be IDEs? And shout out to Ken, who in the comment section recently asked about Nvidia and Tesla and if they have perhaps had manipulation throughout their history. And so let's talk briefly about that. This is Nvidia, and this is the yellow represents the stock price dating back to 2006. And then you've got the white lines, which represent FTDs. That's when there could have been naked shorting or manipulation of the stock price going on. And a couple of things to note here. Although when we do a comparison of this one with Tesla and NIO, we don't see as many FTDs, the white lines. There is one kind of difference as I see it with NVIDIA as what I believe it to be an IDE, an innovative driven enterprise. And the difference with the stock and the stock price action, and even perhaps the FTDs not being as prevalent with this ticker as compared to NIO or Tesla, it could be part of the reason we may not be seeing as many of the FTDs is the stock splits, that NVIDIA did. It's had more stock splits, and they in fact go even beyond and earlier from this chart, this date, which is the earliest that I had access to. So, with that in mind, that could have changed, some of the things going on with the FTDs. But then what about Tesla? If we look at Tesla, and now we're going from the 2010 timeframe, again, we'll see this very low and almost seemingly held low stock price, the yellow line, with very, very high, much higher FTDs. The fails to deliver much higher for quite a while. And in fact, up until about 2019, 2020, a couple of things happened there in that time frame. You had Tesla finally reporting a full year of profitability. You also had the inclusion in the S&P 500. So I think it could be a noteworthy point at which we saw Tesla with a huge short squeeze. Now, they have had just a couple of stock splits. So that could be, again, why I'm wondering or thinking that maybe the FTDs through the history were higher here relative or versus NVIDIA. I do think that you could consider both companies to be IDEs. And I'll share that data here and kind of my take on that in just a second. But this is the NIO chart in history. Now, again, NIO, a younger company, only been listed since 2018. What's interesting to me is not only did we get a glimpse of maybe a short squeeze with NIO stock where it went from $3.50 to over $55 in less than 6 months back in 2020, but we also saw this drop off of the FTDs, and that aligned with big trade volume and a huge move by the stock. But early on, you saw lots of FTDs, and since then we've seen an uptick of FTDs. I also think that there are some different things that have happened over the recent years that also changed some of the shorting and the perhaps the strategies that shorts use in the recent years versus maybe what they were doing back, in the early 2000s or the 2010 era even. So I don't expect to see everything the same, but concept overview is really fascinating when we dig into this, and especially if we consider that NIO is not yet profitable, and yet we've already seen the stock price move up higher, faster, and to a higher point than either of those stocks at an earlier stage for each of them. So I think this is very, very fascinating and interesting. And it's why I've talked about it before, but I wanted to bring it up again since Ken asked the question. It was kind of an opportunity for me to bring this up. Now, this is your IDE on the right-hand side. The idea of this is a company that has a bigger growth trajectory potential. They can, take more of a global footprint, but they need to do a lot of investment early on. And so that's why you see this growth trajectory go negative for a time. And in fact, it can be for many years. I think a great example for NIO and NIO stock as an IDE and the investment that they've done early on was offered by William Lee not too long ago when he admitted that for the same cost of about 1,000 power swap stations, NIO invested into the development of their chip, their ADAS chip. And so again, that's exactly, in my mind anyway, that checks the box for an investment, a heavy investment company that is positioning for bigger growth and hopefully this exponential growth with huge profits, down the road. But again, back, to my original point, I think the key is patience with NIO and NIO stock, especially as we have actually gotten a glimpse of the stock price running, but we haven't seen the company get to profitability. So on my YouTube channel, again, I'm going to pull this up. So if you haven't seen it, I have kind of broken this down, and it's harder to try and call things by years. And so what I did is I came up with 3 kind of major growth phases on the early stage of NIO. And once those 3 would come in, I would have a better idea of what the company looks like. And then at that point, see where the stock price is. So for example, once NIO has delivered 1 million NIO, that's the NIO brand vehicles, I'll have a better sense of how this long-term investment is looking. Now that includes battery as a service and the energy play potential for NIO, which has changed since the early years. And I think it has a lot bigger potential than I ever thought it could have. But until we see 1 million NIO vehicles on the road, that will, for me, get kind of a nod to this BaaS, battery as a service, and what that looks like. It'll also give me a better sense of after profitability, how the company is looking, how it's been received. Even the market awareness globally, I think matters. Recently I did a video and shared about the comparison between NIO in the BEV space in China versus the German brands, Audi, Mercedes, and BMW. All 3 of the German automakers have sold, I think, over 200,000 gas vehicles in the Chinese market in the first 5 roughly months of the year. And in the future, that's not going to be the case. Those sales have to go somewhere else. They have to go to either an EREV, an extended range EV, or a hybrid essentially, or a battery electric vehicle maker like NIO. But the premium, or the 300,000 RMB price range and above in the Chinese market, has been the slowest to adopt and pivot over to full BEVs and away from those gas sales, which means there's still a whole lot yet to be determined. At least that's the way I'm seeing it. So again, kind of back to patience, as in my mind anyway, patience is the key. Giving this company, giving the man who I think is a genius and running the company and has maintained control and has done some very smart, I think some brilliant leverage plays with some of the partnerships, some of the joint ventures, some of the things, even what we're seeing as Firefly and some of the expansion outside of China is now happening, and they're bringing in investors and giving them an opportunity to get involved at kind of a different level. They're just doing things different. And again, it's a nod to what I think is a unicorn of a company, something like we've never seen before. And that is exactly why I don't mind giving it more time. For me, this is just the more time it takes to get to profitability is more of an opportunity for me to continue to research, study, dig, learn, and hopefully grow along the way. But anyway, I wanted to get this video up and out. Shout out to Ken, to all the NIO fam. Have a great weekend. If you see this over the weekend, I'm recording it on June 20th, 2025. I'll see y'all again very soon.